Alright, what is up guys? Loser Manic here, the worst person on YouTube, and welcome to my channel, the worst one on YouTube. I want to do something a bit different. If you guys recall, I did a Fallout 4 review, and in there I kind of talk about what I thought of companions, which, as you can tell by the title, I'm going to be ranking those companions. Now, before we start, I do want to mention a couple of things. One, I am using I did use someone else's video to kind of give me an idea as to why I put them on the list. I'll try to put a link in the description down below to it. Mostly because I'm on phone and trying to upload on the phone and wanting to put the links or whatever in there is kind of tough because you would have to upload the video first. At least to my knowledge, you'll need to upload it first or get it started with the uploading. Or maybe once it's uploaded, edit the description to put the link in there. So I'll try something. I will definitely have it in the description. Maybe I'm not giving credit. The dude's name is Madry Bread. This is like a long ago. I think like almost a year or two ago. Second of all, I'm not using dogmeat in this because well, while he is a companion, he is more of a support companion, and I'm not one for support companions. I want my companions to fight with me as opposed to help me, in a sense, if that makes sense. And considering the fact that one of the upgrades to his perk makes it a bit more accurate in VATS, I would say that's kind of where the support it comes from. And considering the fact that there was plan of there being to where you can have one other person and then dog meat, but since it was scrapped, I think they used him as more as like a support companion, so I'm not using that. And third, and I think finally, I'm not using the DLC companions because I want this list to be something that everyone has access to. And if I was to use DLC, then Porter Gage would be like number one. But Porter Gage from the Nuka World DLC, for people who don't know, because he has like the best armor, the best gun, and like the best perk in the game. Well, best perk in the game kind of depends on who you are. Personally, I think it's the best one because you get 10% or you get 5% more XP for every kill you get, plus you get an extra damage resistance. So, and I haven't seen, because a lot of times companions will like pick up other guns that are better than theirs. So with something like with someone like Porter Gage, I have never seen him pick up another gun. Granted, most of the enemies you fight are weaponless and animals, or either animals, robots, mirelurks, ghouls, and I know there's one more. Oh, and bloodworms. None of them have extra weapons. So, and you can't use the robots as weapons unless you have the Automatron DLC, but you can only use the Assaultron head. So, and I haven't really used all of the companions. I haven't used Old Longfellow, and I barely use Ada. So, so this is my definitive Fallout 4 list. This is my opinion. So, I do want to say the rest of the companions here, who some of you guys may disagree for being high up, or in the position they are, you think they should be higher or lower, but some of them are saved by their perks. There is one on here that I would, in my opinion, if you didn't have like companion perks, then this would be a very different video, or this would be a very different list. And I am prepared this time. I do have a napkin. I wrote down the companions on here. I don't know if you guys will be able to see that. Yeah, you can see there's stuff written on there. This is the closest I could get without writing on important documents that either me or my dad have. And I want to be able to throw this away afterwards because I don't want him knowing I have this. So, yeah. So these have their own little like sections. I don't know if you guys can see here. Like I put lines underneath these. Personally, these are to put them in a list. I don't think they're about as even as some of these are. Although I do have a couple on here who I think are better than the others on this list. But let's start off with the worst companion ever, Hancock. Now he uses a sawed-off shotgun, which I'll be referencing Madry Bread a lot. He said that the AI is like the worst at using something like that, and at the I would agree because shotguns are pretty weird. Is a weird gun to deal with on their own. His perk is pretty bad. Also, you have to give up like most of your health for radiation, and I think it generates more if you have 250 radiation, which you won't be able to use early game. Well, one, because you can't get him early game. You have to like do a certain quest and then get him. But 250 rads, and that's it. Like over 250. The only way I could see you doing that is if you're using a Children of Adam character. But other than that, there isn't. I mean, he does give you chems occasionally, but a lot of the times, with most of the companions I run with, they either don't like chems or just have like a decent favor to, or like a decent dislike to chems, or they're very like neutral. Like, I don't hate you using chems, but it's your choice. If you want to use it, they're very neutral towards it. Next one on their own section is Kate. Kind of like with Hancock, she uses a sawed-off shotgun, which is terrible. But I would say the only thing that makes her different from Hancock is that she can do lock picking, which I know a lot of you guys say is pretty good. But my reasoning for this is because it's not 100%. That's my problem. If the utilities were 100% successful every time, then they would be higher up on the list. But since Kate's lockpicking utility is not 100%, then that brings her down. It makes her just a bit better than Hancock because Hancock doesn't do any sort of thing like that. Her perk, if I remember, is a bit confusing to me because I remember it's bugged in some way. I don't know if like it's what it says is like regens 25 or regens action points 25% faster if your health is 25% of its maximum health. So like if you have 25% of your maximum health left, but I don't know if that's true. I don't know if it's 50% faster and 50% of your health or vice versa in some of those. I don't know. But, so, if I knew what Kate's perk was, it would probably be higher on the list if I could get a full understanding of it. But my dry bread did put it pretty higher, but I totally disagree with that. Because it is not 100%. Next is one that I felt bad using, considering the fact that my all-time favorite companion is on here. But I'll let you guys know who I'm talking about in a moment. Codsworth. He is pretty good early on. A lot of these, except for one of them, is pretty good early on, and then the rest you have decent to better options. And Codsworth is one of those that's really good early on. He does give you purified water, which will be kind of good if you're using if you're doing like a kind-hearted character, because there are those like random encounters where you see thirsty people who need water, and then that's what he would be good for. But his perk is either really good or pretty bad depending on what you have. If you have the Automatron DLC, then it's pretty good because it does 25% energy resistance or damage against robots. It affects robots in a way, so that's to me, Codsworth's perk is why I say it's pretty hit and miss. If you have the Automatron DLC, it's either really good, or if you don't, then it's really bad, because you don't really come across as much robots in the Commonwealth if you just have vanilla Fallout 4, like you don't have any of the DLCs of the Game of the Year edition. But for me, he would be pretty useful because I do have the Automatron DLC. I do have all those, although I barely use it, so I would say he's pretty good on the list. Nick Valentine. Same thing with Kate. To me, he's basically more like Piper if Piper was able to hack terminal. But again, not always 100% of the time is he successful. But what I do like is the fact that he has a better weapon than Kate, which is kind of what made him higher on the list than Kate, because he does use a pipe revolver, which is really good. And personally, I do think that I do have Piper on this section, which is one I was not happy about putting on here, but it made sense. But it does, I think it does more damage than the weapons in this section, because I'll explain what I want. His perk is probably the worst one because, first of all, the perk makes it to where your lockout time is 50% less. So I think you're locked out for 10 seconds usually. So now with his perk, you're locked out for 5 seconds, and you do get one extra attempt at hacking, which first of all doesn't stack with the science bobblehead. That was one of the things I learned was with the science bobblehead. That's a weird word. With the science bobblehead, you gain that extra attempt or extra try. But if you have the science bobblehead, then Nick's perk is pretty useless. But if you don't go for all the bobbleheads, which I don't know why you would, or I don't know why you wouldn't, because those are pretty good, then I would say Nick Valentine is kind of worth getting, but only by a tiny bit. But Madry Bread did point out that if you have one try left and you don't know, or you're not really sure, then you can just go back in, and you have all those attempts back, and so you get to try again. Piper was one I was not happy with putting on here, because she's my favorite companion of all time, but I did try to keep my unbiased on this one. Like I said before, Piper is pretty much just Nick Valentine if you gave her, well, aside from a different gun, if you gave her a hacking ability, which could be said about any character. Like, yeah, Deacon is basically Nick Valentine if you gave Nick Valentine a shotgun or a sniper rifle, and the ability to sneak and not hack terminals. Like I understand that sense is pretty bad, but to be honest, like Piper and Nick are basically the same in that sense. Piper does give you candies, which a lot of people would say is pretty bad, but I think it's pretty useful. I do use it if I don't have any Nuka-Cola and I'm doing a Minutemen playthrough. I just have to be lucky that when she gives me candy, it's a Nuka-Cola to give to Sheffield in Diamond City to make him my settler, to give to him to make him my settler. But her gun is pretty good. It's a 10mm pistol. Her perk is another one of those that's either hit or miss, because if you do have like a character has a charisma of 10, then it is pretty useful because it gives you 5% more XP for passing speech checks and discovering locations, which for like almost all of my characters, I just depend on the locations. And I say Piper's perk is one of those to try to get as early as possible for that, to take advantage of that, but considering the fact that it's very hard to do, or I wouldn't say very hard to do, the best way to do it would to be pick unknown locks, but consider the fact there's like a wait time, or there's a certain time in the game that you have to wait. I would say it's pretty hard to do early on, but but again, it's really hit or miss if you have a character has a charisma of 1, because you'll be using a lot of chems, a lot of alcohol, and that could be a big risk because you could get addicted to those. So I would say if you use companions for the perks only, kind of like what I do, is sometimes I would say figure out if you really want Pipers, because some of those are, because hers is pretty meh. Like I said, like I always say, it's hit or miss. But personally, I do like Piper. Her gun is pretty good, and Cosworth, Nick, and Piper are the three that I say is pretty good early on because um, Piper's gun does barely any damage later on. Consider the fact that she has like a standard 10mm pistol, which is something you get whenever you leave the vault. But and you can't modify it. That's the only problem that comes up with that, is you can't modify it. If you could, then I would say that this list would be completely different. I would say like all the gun characters would be higher than the people who don't use guns. And next is X688. He's basically a courser, but he's not that hard to kill. I swear to God, he has the same amount of damn or hit points as the rest of the companions or humanoid companions. I don't know if some of the people like Codsworth or have lower health, but it's harder to kill a courser than it is for X688 to fucking die or get injured. It's so easy that if he was truly like an actual courser when you play him or whenever you use him as a companion, then he would be higher up. His gun is bad because he uses an Institute pistol. Is it pistol or rifle? I don't know. He uses an Institute weapon, which is like the worst in the game aside from the submachine gun. But and other than that, he does use stealth boys. Well, so do other companions, but he's able to use stealth boys. Use stim packs, kind of like coursers do, and all that. He does give you fusion cells, which, kind of like a lot of these companions, is either good depending on who your character is or what weapons he uses, and it could be also pretty bad if you're like me and just use ballistics. Other than that, nothing really special. His perk, Shield Horn Marks, is pretty good, but aside from that one, I really don't like him. He's boring. He's not emotional. He doesn't show much emotion, which we would expect from a courser. But I would expect the Institute to make them have some emotion. Like with some of these companions, they just be like, "I got a dog," but with him, it's just be like, "I got a dog." Like, that's boring. I had a teacher like that. She was boring, and he just like him. Personally, if you like him, fine. I'm not gonna argue with that, but I do not like him at all. So next is from here we get pretty controversial, MacCready and Curie are on this list, or their own little section. MacCready is one of those where, like, I use the comparison of like a stealth character, because his usefulness only works with stealth in a sense of his perk gives you a 10% VATS accuracy to the head. Which, I mean, the only time you'd ever really use something like that is if you're doing like a sniper character, and snipers use stealth. And that is something I find to be pretty useful, but that's only limited to something like just guns as a whole. So whether it's energy or ballistic. And he does give you ammo, such as from 5mm all the way up to a fusion core, which is pretty good, but kind of like Piper with the candies, you have to be pretty lucky to get what you want. Or it's all based off chance with what you want. Or same thing with Hancock with the chems. If there's one chem you're looking for in particular to give to either Mama Murphy or you just want to craft like those Psycho Jet and all that, you would need to be pretty lucky But other than that, he is good. He does use a sniper rifle. Um, but the problem with that is I'm I'm one of those like running gun type people. I'd rather like go into the battle than try and do it from a distance most times. So MacCready is pretty. The sniper rifle as a whole is pretty bad for something like that. So I would say MacCready is only good based around your character playstyle. And whether you like the sniper rifle as a whole. Of course, you could give them different guns, but I'm only restricting it to this one because that one has unlimited ammo. Fun fact: I did try and put Preston Garvey on here, but I'm going to take into account his perk, so he's a bit higher on the list. And next is Curie. Um, while she does, while she is like the most powerful character from what I heard in the game, what I put to consider is that even though like she's a Miss Nanny for like 25% of the approval talks, meaning like you go through like one approval talk and then the rest of the three approval talks she's a synth. What she lacks for with the I'm trying to like word this. She even though she's a Miss Nanny, her and I'm not really one for special stats. I don't know if you guys are. I This is the only time I'll put special stats into account. When she's a Miss Nanny, her intelligence is 11, but after she's a synth, it's like all 5 or all 4, which is pretty bad because it doesn't really make sense in the sense that all of her memories from the Miss Nanny are moving over the um to the synth, like every single detail. But I would expect it to go down to like maybe like a 10 or a 9 because well, she's not a computer anymore. She's a synth. She's a person. Um yeah, her perk is pretty good, but I would say it's only good again like early to mid game because if you do end game, which or if you play the game later on with like 800 HP, then you basically she gives you like 100% health one day or 100 extra hit points one day for one day. So if you're really low, your health will go back up to 100. But again, that's either pretty good if you're starting out because you don't really have 100 HP. So like it's like she could heal all your health to like mid game whenever you have like 200 or 300. But if you have like 800 health, that's about the equivalency of having the 98 health at the beginning of the game. Well, to be fair though, it is 100, but it'd be like having one or maybe 15 health or 15 hit points left at like level 1. I think I'm not good with that math. So yeah, overall, I think it's pretty good. She does give you a stim pack, which is just one. Which, well, I understand it is a bit overpowered, in a sense of if she gave you like 5 or 6, but occasionally, like if she gave you like 1 or 2 or maybe even 3, that would have been fine. But yeah, Curie's pretty mild for me. Next is Deacon and Strong. Deacon is kind of like MacCready. His perk is only good if you use stealth, but what makes him better than MacCready for me is his perk is all rounder with the stealth. Like even with MacCready with the whole like sniper thing, you'd first of all you'd want to use that kill shot with the sniper because I mean if you try using it with the pistol, it'd be pretty funny, but it's to me it's more suited for a sniper, and that's only if you use like ballistic or energy weapons. But Deacon's perk works whether you use guns or melee or unarmed. So if you use like a power fist or knuckles or even like Pikmin's blade and all that, that's pretty useful. Um, And he does, and he makes stealth boys last a bit longer, which with my stealth character is actually pretty useful. Especially out in the open. It doesn't make it last like 3 minutes. It makes it last like a few more seconds. But same thing with MacCready. Sniper rifle the same. His stealth is pretty higher than MacCready's. So if you do use a stealth character, either Deacon or Dogmeat. That was a weird thing I found out. Is that Dogmeat's stealth is even higher than Deacon's. But other than that, nothing special going for them. Now that I think, if I feel like now that I think about it, I probably should have put MacCready and Deacon on the same list because what? Because for what Deacon makes up with MacCready on the perk side, MacCready makes up for it with the ammunition. But I mean, I guess it's kind of too late for that now, huh? And then Strong, first of all, let me say I barely use Strong. Although I have used Strong more times than Hancock, I barely use him, so that's where the whole dry bread video comes in place, because I don't know. He's the only companion I know that uses just melee. You could give him like weapons, super mutants to use like pipe weapons and assault rifles and miniguns and all that, but like I mentioned with the other companions, they aren't unlimited. Um, and with Strong, he's really proficient with it. His perk is another one of those, like, I wouldn't say it's a bad one, but only for the circumstance of it. Like, you wouldn't, I shouldn't have done that. Like, you wouldn't really, his perk makes it to where you do 25% more damage with melee weapons when your health is 25% or below health, which, I mean, you would try to avoid that 25% health anyways. So that seems pretty bad, but if you're low on stim packs, I would say that's pretty good. Or maybe you use Hancock's perk and combine it with that. So you have the 250 and the higher up until the point where your health is 25%. So now not only do you have a faster exit point or critical regeneration, but you also do more damage with your melee weapons. But that's a bit much because your screen would be like pulsating and not good. So yeah, he does give you meats, which is better than Piper's candy because they do heal more and you can cook them to get better, to either get better stats such as rev resistance for an hour, or if you have certain ingredients ready, you can make like Milo cakes, which makes you breathe underwater, which is good in Far Harbor. If you do the pull the plug mission up near thicket excavations, but other than that, um, he does have like either the second highest health or the highest health. The only problem I would see with Strong is the fact that you have to work hard to get him, because the leader that's trapping him is like level 50, which could take like an hour to kill him. Or if you use like Psycho and a combat rifle, because that's how you can kill Swan at like level 8, is if you use like a combat rifle and Psycho. So I would say if you want to get him early on, just use like a combat rifle that you can find up near Fort Hagen and Psycho. And that really helps. And yes, I did kill Swan at level 8. I don't know how, I just did. And the other downside I would see is if you're one of those people that likes to have your companions wear different armors. Superman armor is very hard to come by. The only places you'll be able to find them is places like Wilson's Automatoys and Scrap Palace. I think those are the two main ones. I was able to find some at the Revere Satellite Array, but hardly any. So I'd say Scrap Palace and the Wilson's Automatoys factory up near Quincy, or I think west of Quincy, and I think a bit north of Merkwater construction site. I don't know how I know those, but I don't know how I know where those are. But hey, been playing the game way too much. And finally, I do have the higher ups. With Preston Garvey. Again, this one is a very controversial one because his gun is bad, but again, if you supply him with like whatever weapon, to me, if you give him like a 6 crank laser musket, no, it does more damage as opposed at the cost of reload speed. But if you constantly give him like fusion cores or something like that, you'll be fine. But what made him higher up on the list is the fact that I had to take into consider Dance's perk, who was also like higher up on the list. Preston Garvey's perk makes it to where you do more damage and damage resistance when facing up against 3 or more people, which is actually pretty common. Because I've never gone up against 2 people unless I use mods. But if I'm not accounting for mods, then happens like every time. What I think would have made it better is if you made it to where is if it was made to where like it also accounts for with Death Claws, because Death Claws is one of those, either Death Claws and I think Rad Scorpions are the 2 main ones that you would fight in single pairs, or not a single pair, that's 2, but like 1 at a time. I mean, I have gone up against like more than 1 Rad Scorpion, but I've only so okay, I guess really Death Claws mostly. Um, but I mean, I'm not one. Who am I to complain? You know, I do use his perk a lot. Whenever I do a Minuteman character, he's one of those I try and get aside from Piper's, because I do need a high charisma for that to work. But I'm not going back to her. Um, and I think of all of the companions to get affinity for, I would have to say Preston is pretty easy, because all you have to do is just help out settlements or settlers, which if you use mods that like delete the cooldown time is actually pretty useful, because you can just go do that and then do all that stuff, say that you help them, and then you get the like points, which he loves that stuff, and all that. So it's pretty good, but he is pretty annoying. I will admit that he is very annoying. I didn't notice whenever I first got it and I did the Minutemen, I didn't think it was pretty annoying, but then there were like bugs that would make it to where because a lot of people were saying like he spams you with like Minuteman quests, but at the time whenever I would go through whenever I would complete those and have like no Minuteman quests, he wouldn't give them to me, and I would check Radio Freedom, they wouldn't give them to me. So I was like, well, I don't understand why people find him annoying. And then I kept replaying the game as the Minuteman, and then I realized, Jesus Christ, he's so goddamn annoying. So, but other than that, his gun and armor is pretty bad, because the Colonel Duster gives like 5 DT. Or, no, DT is fucking New Vegas. Damn it, DR. Damage resistance. Jesus Christ. And finally, Dance. To be honest, I could not think of anything negative about him. So that's why he belonged on this list. He does have a laser rifle, which is pretty good. He is pretty quick with it. He's a pretty trigger-happy, quicker trick person. And I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't tried it, but if you give Dance any sort of power armor pieces from 45 up to XO1, even though he has XO1 after you complete his personal quest, they won't break at all. Fusion cores won't run dry. Which, I mean, to be honest, the only gun I would love to see him in is a Gatling laser, because either that or miniguns are what you see all over the Brotherhood, aside from like laser. I have seen laser weapons occasionally, but not as much as I've seen like miniguns and Gatling lasers. And when I understand that those are like different per rank, I figured Dance would be good with like, I would love to see dance with like a Gatling laser or a minigun. But I mean, I can't complain there. His quest or his perk is good. It does 5% more damage to ghouls, synths, and super mutants, which again is could be difficult to get if you don't have a high enough charisma check, because you have to keep. So, I would say spoiler alert, but I do have a rule that if the game is over 2 years old, I don't give a shit about spoilers anymore, and you just have to see for yourself. Because I personally believe that like if you within those 2 years, if you were interested in playing the game, then you should have either gotten it by then or just watch YouTube. So I'm not gonna say spoiler alert. I am gonna say you have to keep him alive, which the only way to do that is if you have like a high charisma, because you do get confronted by Elder Maxon at the end. But if you don't have that high enough charisma, then that is pretty much useless. Or it's then going for the perk is pretty much a waste. Which is why, and to be honest, if you do manage to get the perk, I would say try and romance him, because, well, I mean, if you do a Brotherhood of Steel character, then that would be someone you want around for like the most of the game, except for if you do Blind Betrayal, which again, mods can fix it to where they dance and the Brotherhood make peace, but again, that's mods. Other than that, he's the only companion who comes with power armor that doesn't break. People like, again, Preston, Piper, Nick was a weird one, because I saw somewhere that he could wear power armor, and I didn't believe it until I was traveling around doing his quest, and then I saw him into power armor. I was like, okay, yeah, he can wear power armor, which was weird, but I mean, who am I to judge, right? But he does get mediocre armor at the start, but then at the end, if you do save him, he gets like the best armor in the game, which, I mean, if you do have Exo 1 power armor and you don't plan on using it, you could just, with that Exo 1, just have him kind of modify it to your liking, meaning like give it like F and make him, give it like carry weight and all that stuff. Make him like really powerful, and then give it to him, and then he'll be like a beast to be around. So yeah, that is my definitive companion list. I had a brain fart there for a moment. Yeah, this was my definitive companion list. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. If you would change something, if you think someone deserves to be higher. Personally, if you're asking me if I had to do it based off my favorites, what I personally think, but I was going off like usefulness, but if you had to ask me, I would say Piper is like the best. So I put him, I probably put her up with like maybe Preston Garvey and Dance, but that is a bit of a race because I am biased. Let me know if you think someone deserves to be lower, and honestly, why do you think so? And also, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. I don't plan on leaving such a small gap, but I do want to try and upload more. I will try that. If you guys did like this video, make sure to leave a like and share with your friends if you want. I'm not here to force you to anything. I'm just here to give you guys some content. And yeah, I don't know why I keep looking at this list. The video's over. Yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. Loser Manic out.